time flies. It seemed like it was just spring minutes ago. Now it's fall, summer's over, everybody's back from summer vacation, kids are back in school. This is crazy time. It probably is for you too, 2021 business planning, budgeting. Then you got all the customer visits and travel schedule got to plan this fall, and it's conference season. First on the agenda though is 2020, Tech Home 2020. Got to go to that. That'll be awesome. Tech Home 2020 kind of needs a theme song. Trying to find parking. Is that barbecue? Oh, I might be late. Parking's outrageous. Can't believe what they charge for one little parking spot. What if I could get John to pay for my parking? That'd be something. No, that'd be a miracle. Tech Home 2020, here I come. I can't wait to see what they have up their sleeve. They always bring the latest in new home technology, smart home features, all the latest gadgets, all in one place to make it super convenient. And then there's the people. Builders, developers, integrators, manufacturers, the best people you're ever gonna wanna meet. You can mingle, talk, exchange tips, information. And then of course there's John's pub crawl. I tell you, I don't drink very often, but when I do drink, I like to drink on John's dime. And here's a tip for you. Bring a flask and fill up. Well, here we go. Oh, COVID. This changes everything. Indeed, COVID has changed just about every aspect of our daily lives. For example, we're not all hanging out in a convention center, trolling the aisles of the trade show to find the best Chotsky out there, and we're not having cocktails on John. No, you're at home in front of your monitor watching your 14th Zoom meeting, and I'm here in the park giving a presentation, which is actually kind of a pretty good bonus in this whole thing. But I know what it's like. I've been stuck behind the screen for way too many hours every day too, and I can only imagine that you feel like you've been a cast member conscripted into the zombie apocalypse. And my mind of what you all must look like out there listening to me kind of looks something like this, which is not a very attractive looking crowd. Our new normal has gotten really weird, and we've done some pretty weird things out there. For example, do you really think we should be drinking inside of inner tubes in a restaurant? I'm not sure all of these new normal activities are going to stick with us after the pandemic's over. What we've got to do is we've got to figure out how to transition from reacting to the pandemic to planning a positive and bright future for every one of our businesses and our entities. So today's topic is about prosperity in a post-pandemic world and dealing with the fact that everything has changed. And indeed, then nothing has changed at all as well. And we're going to deal with that paradox throughout this presentation. But let's start first talking about the pandemic. The impact of the pandemic has been absolutely extraordinary, unprecedented. Nowhere in the history of economic data have we seen impacts like we've seen before. Look, we can talk about the 23 weeks that initial unemployment claims were over 1 million every single week. That sounds pretty spectacular all by itself, but I like to look at the blue line on this chart. This is the line of weekly unemployment filings, and it goes all the way back to the 1970s. So it chronicles every single recession that we've kind of known since we were small kids. And you can see the small peaks, those little teeny small peaks were like the financial meltdown in 2008, which on this chart looks like a blip compared to the massive impacts of the unemployment filings that we've seen during this pandemic. And it's not just unemployment, it's all the financial and economic impact measures. I don't care whether you talk about interest rates, government deficit, the dollar's value, every single basic financial measure that we look at has had profound effects on these charts. Massive dislocations from what we're used to in a normally functioning economy. And consumers haven't gone unscathed either. Consumer confidence is at a 6-year low, and you can imagine with 1 million people filing for unemployment each week, and with unemployment rates, having peaked at 15% officially, but over 20% unofficially, there are a lot of consumers out there that are kind of afraid, tentative, and uncertain about the future. This creates confidence problems, which will translate to economic damage in our economy and spending, which could affect your business. But not all businesses have been affected this way. Housing is kind of on the flip side of this equation. At first, we saw a decline in home sales, especially in the new home side, and builders really panicked. There were 4 weeks where it looked pretty tentative. But we at BDX actually track new home activity across the entire internet, and within weeks, we had determined that the consumer was back, and not just back, they were back with a vengeance. They were looking to buy homes, and the new home economy rebounded very quickly. And that can be said really for all home sales. And you can see Redfin tracks this data as well down in the bottom right-hand corner. And they saw the same thing, a drop-off in sales followed by a massive reemergence of the home buying consumer. But the housing market also is not so smooth and all up and to the right. There are portions of the housing market that are actually feeling a lot of pain, especially in the urban centers. You can't go a day without seeing some news source looking at New York City and chronicling the drop in rents, the decline in prices of condominiums, the massive devaluation of commercial buildings in Manhattan and New York City Center. So not everything is happy in Housingville. So what we're dealing with now is something that we really haven't dealt with very much in past recessions, and that's called a K-shaped recovery. When we began this, there was a discussion of would this be V-shaped or U-shaped, and that was all economists wanted to talk about. We were either going to have a sharp downturn followed by an immediate rebound, or perhaps we'd get a little bathtub bottom there and it would take a little time for the economy to rebound. No one talked about what we're actually experiencing, and that's the K-shaped recovery. And the K-shaped recovery is pretty interesting. What it means is that there are certain sectors of the economy that they aren't just not impacted, they're actually thriving in this downturn. There are other sections of the economy that are being dramatically impacted. And you can kind of go through this little sorting list yourself in your own mind. You can imagine equity markets are absolutely thriving. Delivery services are doing great. Anything with RVs, camping, getting outdoors, getting out in the wilderness, out of this world, sales topping the charts, best years in decades. Online services, white-collar jobs, home improvement, housing, new construction, all on the upside of the K. The downside of the K are people in the hospitality, entertainment, casino businesses, low-wage workers, urban centers, dry cleaners, cosmetics, anything about getting gussied up and go to the office, because we're not going to the office. Those are the industries that are on the bottom side of the K. So this is kind of a have and have not economy. Not just have like I had last year, but I've got way more than I ever had before, or I have nothing at all. And we haven't seen that before. And it's probably best chronicled or best demonstrated in this battle that's going on between Wall Street and Main Street. You know, Wall Street's going up and to the right. Main Street, with 1 million initial job claims every single week being filed, is going down, right, in the opposite direction. And it's confusing people. You kind of scratch your head and go, how could this possibly be? What we do know with all of this, though, and it's very clear that the lockdown has gone on for so long, and it's affected so many portions of our lives, that it's going to have long, lingering impacts on how consumers behave in the economy and how you as individual business people can survive and thrive in the future. McKinsey did a study and kind of chronicled the 5 largest shifts that they saw that they believe will be long-term trends. Now, some of these may be permanent trends, and others may just be acceleration of trends that were already in case, and others may just be trends for over the next couple of years. Regardless of how long the duration, all of us need to be cognizant of these. The first is kind of this shift to value. Second is a flight to digital commerce and digital services. The third is a shock to loyalty and brand erosion. Fourth is health and health caring and the kind of the healthy economy, staying healthy and safe. And then last, the homebody economy. We're going to look at a couple of those that are going to affect the home building industry and all the trades and the manufacturing partners that participate in that industry. So let's start with number 1, right? Just the change in consumer habits and shopping behaviors during COVID. In the United States, 75% of all households say they have significantly changed their shopping habits during COVID. And here's the rub. 80% of them say they're going to maintain those habits permanently after COVID is over. So you can kind of do the math yourself and realize that kind of 60 to 65% of all households have changed their behavior permanently. And that behavior means they're going online. There's no better place to kind of observe this than e-commerce and online sales. E-commerce grew 32% in Q2 alone. 1/4. E-commerce sales shot through the roof. 44% years of growth year over year. It's now taking over 30% of all commerce, but it's going to back down for a year end. It's going to be somewhere around that 14, 15% of all commerce is going to now happen online. And nobody is predicting that next year it's going to drop off if COVID disappears. This is a sudden, abrupt shift in consumer behavior that if you haven't already addressed, if you're already not on top of, if you aren't thinking digital first, then you're behind and becoming irrelevant day after day. This isn't the only kind of change they made. What happened during COVID was a massive acceleration of societal change, which we have never seen in our lifetime. You know, we got in e-commerce 10 years of e-commerce growth in 8 weeks. We got 250 million people that moved from online education to teleeducation in 2 weeks period of time. I mean, the acceleration in society of telemedicine was just extraordinary. We had a 10x increase in telemedicine within 15 days. These are societal changes that take decades, and they happened within days and weeks. And we have to be cognizant of how quickly society is changing around us and how we're going to now meet that consumer. We were struggling to meet the digital consumer where they were last February, before we even knew there was a pandemic, before we knew this were coming. We were struggling with keeping up with digital trends. Now society is changing day by day, week by week at a rate we've never seen before. We've got to reassess where we are and how we meet these consumers in the future. Now let's talk about housing. This is probably one of the biggest areas where consumers have changed. We've become homebodies. Why? Because, well, we work there, we eat there, we play there, we connect there, we do our business, we do everything at home now. So our relationship with housing in our homes are changing, and you can see that in the dollars that consumers are spending. They're spending more time cooking, they're buying more groceries, right? They're doing more entertainment at home, right? They want to improve their home. Their home improvement expenditures are up over 22% year over year, right? The fundamental relationship between humans and housing in the United States is changing and probably will be changed for a long period of time, enabling us to harvest extraordinary profits over the course of the next few years. Now, the next thing that we notice is because the massive impact that we're seeing economically, consumers are getting kind of cautious about their economic future. They're worried. They're worried about their job, their savings, inflation, the cost of goods, right? They're worried about all these things, and that's changing their spending habits. What we see is that we believe there's going to be about a 12% reduction in consumer expenditures over the course of the next 2 years. So the economy, the consumer economy, regardless of what anyone else says or does, is going to end up shrinking by about 12%. And what they spend their money on is changing, and who they buy from is changing. What's happening now is consumers are looking at value and convenience as the top reason to pick a vendor for a service or a product. Then once they identify that vendor, they pick brands on the same issues, value and availability, because consumers have been kind of squeezed out of so many markets because of the massive demand that has occurred in certain consumer categories. Availability and value rule. So this will make us change how we market and position our products and how we message to consumers. But it's a huge opportunity for us to change their allegiances and to do business with us instead of our competitors. How do they find information? How are they acquiring information? How do they learn about these new products? Online, 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 online. I hope you got that somewhere in there, online. Everything's gone digital. 60% of all information that consumers gathered during the pandemic was found directly from online sources. If you're not online, you are not in their consideration matrix. You have to understand that. So the question is this all going to stick? You know, yeah, Tim, I know it's a pandemic, we've all changed, but, you know, come on, aren't we just going to go back to the way it used to be? I think the answer to that question has already started to be seen with other societies that have gotten out of pandemic. And what it seems to relate back to was how good was their alternative experience. If I went from normal doctor visits where I had to call and I couldn't get a hold of anybody, nobody ever answered the phone, they called back and I had 14 calls back and forth, and then I had to set an appointment that was 4 weeks from now, and then I had to go sit in the office with a bunch of sick people, and then I had to fill out a bunch of forms, and then I had to wait in an office for the doctor to see me for 5 minutes and then drive all the way home, versus I could literally log on, schedule an appointment 5 minutes, have the doctor see me, the prescription sent to my online pharmacy, and I get the drugs sent to me by courier courier within 1 hour. That's a better process. That kind of better process will mean it will stick. If you don't have that kind of process, if the online, the digital experience is really worse than the physical experience, then some of these behaviors may end up reverting back. The path from here to there, it's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be starts and stops and information that's unreliable, consumer trends that turn out not to be long-term trends, but short-term trends. We're going to invent solutions that we think work, and then we find out they don't work. We're going to have to jive, tack our way from here to there. We've got to have patience. But the key is society has moved, our markets have moved, prosperity has moved, and if you want to share in that, you're going to have to move your business to intersect it into the future. And that path is not as clear and as linear as you would like it to be, and we're going to have to bear with that uncertainty. Now let's kind of make sense for a moment the housing market. Because after all, that's kind of in a way the economic engine that kind of drives everybody in this room. Oh, we're not in a room. That's right. There's 5,000 of you all sitting in front of your monitors in that zombie kind of mode, wondering what this guy's talking about. But nonetheless, the housing economy drives all of our business. Whether you're an integrator, a retailer, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a developer, whether you're a builder, the housing economy drives this. And we've been on the upper end of that K. And can we make some sense of that? So I'm going to bring you back to this chart because we track every single week the BDX, a national Google consumer search index. And that index basically determines how much activity is there relative to past years of people searching for new homes. Meaning people are sitting there Sunday afternoon typing in, hey, new homes in Pensacola, Florida. What builders are in, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. When they do that, Google obviously keeps all of that data, and we can now see what kind of relative activity we have. What we saw in this crisis is that prior to the 4th week in February, even though the pandemic was raging around the world, China was in lockdown, Italy was in crisis, France was in crisis, Spain was in crisis, Americans were oblivious. We didn't care at all. We didn't care until the CDC came out and actually said that Americans need to be prepared to lock down. When that announcement came out, we saw an immediate and direct drop-off in the number of people that started searching for new home real estate. And it was profound. In a period of 4 weeks, we had lost about a third of the entire market. It panicked builders. Builders made all kinds of decisions. They laid people off. They stopped buying land. They stopped buying spec homes. They thought we were heading into Armageddon. On the 5th week, the trend reversed, and that trend reversed for almost 20 weeks. That trend went up and to the right every week after that. And it didn't just get back to normal. It got back to a point where there were more than 30% more people searching for homes this year than the prior year. We've never seen a year-over-year comparison when there's 30% more people searching for homes this year than the prior year. If you have a 10% increase, a 15% increase, that's an amazing market because you got to remember, last year was awesome. So what does an awesome year followed by a year where there's 30% more people searching for a home look like? Spectacular. And that's what we had. And the reason for it is new construction had a perfect storm. Never before in my, at least professional history, have I ever seen these factors line up like this. First of all, it starts by just looking at new home market share. Since the economic crisis and the housing bubble of 2007 and 8, new homes have been building a much smaller proportion of the total market share of homes sold, and we haven't closed that gap. We've got about a 30% volume decline from traditional market share levels. So just from a market share perspective, at any point in time, new homes could see about a 30% increase, and we would just get back to normal market share levels. So that's a really nice starting point. Then the second ball hit. And that second stroke that hit this industry was a dramatic reduction in the number of used homes for sale. Suddenly, used homes went off the market. People pulled their homes that were on the market off the market, and no one put more homes on the market because they didn't want people coming in their homes. They were living in their home, and they didn't want strangers coming in their home and touching things, potentially spreading disease to their family. They just took their homes off the market, which meant if you were looking for a home, you had to look for a new home. We became the only choice in the marketplace, which was a spectacular market position for new construction. In many markets, this drop in existing homes was in the 30, 40, and even 50% level, making it almost impossible for consumers to find alternative to new. Then the third shoe dropped, which was during a pandemic. Who wants to go into somebody else's house? You have no idea how clean it is. You have to go with a real estate agent. There might be people living there, right? It's just kind of scary. New homes suddenly just became more comfortable, convenient, and a better choice in a COVID environment. You knew you could schedule an appointment all by yourself in a home that had been cleaned and sterilized and nobody had ever lived in. That sounds like a lot safer, more convenient way to tour homes. Then shoe 4. Everybody in the urban environment and apartments got tired of being cooped up in their little teeny apartment with no outdoor space. And urbanites started to flee to rural and suburban communities, and they wanted a yard. What does that mean? That means new home sales. More and more demand of people moving out of apartments and urban locations, searching for a little patch of grass behind a home that they could own. But that's not enough. We added to it. We threw the Ginsu knife set in. That's right. Stay tuned, right? And we're not over yet. The government then decided that they were going to pour cash on the situation. $1,200 stimulus checks to every single citizen in the United States, whether you lost your job or not. That means if you had 2 people in a household and maybe a kid or 2, you got $3,000, $4,000 from the federal government. And by the way, you couldn't spend the money you were making, right? The amount of spending that you had went down dramatically. So I got extra money from the government. I increased my saving because I couldn't really spend the money anywhere. The result of that was more people had a down payment. More people could move into the home buying market than ever before. And the last shoe to drop. The Fed then decided to move interest rates to 0 and tell everybody they were going to keep them there for a very long time. That has dropped mortgage rates, 30-year fixed mortgage rates, below 3%. That simply makes housing more affordable. That puts homes within reach of more Americans. You add all of this up, it's an amazing perfect storm that what could have been a terrible situation for builders and has made it the single best selling season in the history of housing. That's the upside of the K recovery. And if you're not looking to buy a home, then you were sitting at home watching HGTV talking about how you're going to fix up a home in 30 minutes. Evidently, everybody did that because if you look at sales of home improvement items, they're through the roof. As soon as the pandemic hit, everything about the home went crazy. All home improvement expenses instantly doubling. You know, everything from house painting and finishing, because you can imagine, you're sitting at home, suddenly going, God, this place doesn't look so great. I normally spend 10 hours at work, 2 hours in traffic, I get home when it's dark. I don't see any of that kind of stuff. Now I do. And this is my new home office. This is where I'm going to cook. This is where I'm going to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, month after month, going nowhere, seeing nobody. We're going to fix up the house. And that's what Americans did. Gardening, landscaping, painting, home improvements, home products. If you're in the home products industry, if you're providing home appliances, anything about the home, you're loving life right now. It's been a wild ride, depending on whether you're on the upside of the K or the bottom side of the K. No matter what, we're all stressed. We're all fatigued with this. We're kind of sitting here at this point after summer. I know you don't really look like this. First of all, you're probably in your pajamas, right? If you're even wearing pants, okay? So I know, I can see. Yep, that's right, cover up. Okay. But you're at home, summer's over, fall's here. You're kind of looking and going, wow, I'm fatigued. I'm worn out. This is taking a long time. Where do I go from here? The problem is we're looking at a fall that's now going to add flu season to this. We don't have a vaccine yet, right? We've still got all the economic damage, and consumer behavior has changed. So we have to pivot. We've got to ask, what now? What now is an intentional choice. What we've been doing to date is mostly reacting. The lack of strategy is basically just the choice of reacting to the situation. And I'm not complaining. We had a lot to react to. We had a ton thrown at us. We quickly figured out how to deal with it as best we could, right? And we've dealt with it. And we've dealt with it now for 10 months. But after 10 months, it's time to switch gears. It's time to switch gears and move from reacting to acting, to strategically looking at the situation, the facts on the ground, and figuring out not only how are we going to survive, but planning how we're going to thrive in the future. That's the pivot that we need to make and shift ahead to move ourselves from here to here based on these changes in the marketplace. As Stephen Covey said, proactive people carry their own weather with them. We need to start creating our own weather. Stop reacting to all the inbound stimulus, create the weather, and build our future together. We need to embrace this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of digital transformation. Look, you can't escape the fact that the coronavirus has changed a lot. And if you look at the media, every article you pull up, it will tell you it's changed absolutely everything. It's changed housing, it's changed how we go to school, it's changed how we consume entertainment, it's changed how we live, it's changed consumption rates of digital commerce, everything. But if you look at it with a little closer inspection, I beg to differ on some aspects of this. The relationship between consumers and businesses is built on this connection, right? And that connection has been interrupted by COVID. But if you look at where consumers were, if we look at the last 10 years of how consumers were behaving, what we find is not so much a massive change. What we find is simply an acceleration of change. Geoffrey Moore has this model called crossing the chasm where change, the early change agents, the innovators adopt first, and then early adopters start to adopt. And it slowly moves into the mainstream of society. All that happened with COVID is we had a group of innovators and early adopters that were already doing all this stuff digitally. All COVID did was simply accelerate that adoption by moving it into the early majority and the late majority. So now the vast preponderance of society behaves like the innovators were behaving just 1 year ago. And there's probably no better way to see this again. I'm going back again to e-commerce. What you see in the dark bars here is 1 decade of consumer adoption of e-commerce. And you can see every single year for 10 years, consumers have been adopting e-commerce more vigorously. Every single year, the e-commerce experience has been getting better, more immersive, better content, easier, more transparent, more frictionless. And consumers have been adopting it. It's not like there's a question out there of, are consumers using e-commerce? Are they using e-commerce more every year? Yes, for 10 years they've been doing this. What happened with the pandemic was massive acceleration. 10 years of growth in just a few weeks. The light blue bar, massive adoption. It wasn't so much a change. So to say COVID changed everything, COVID didn't change it, COVID accelerated it. And they were changed because of the experience that they've had with brands. They were changed by Carvana. They were changed that they don't need to go to no stinking dealer and talk to a guy in a checkered sport coat. They could go online, search for cars themselves in the comfort of their home at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, pick their car and have it delivered to their front door. They learned that from Carvana. They learned they didn't need to go to the grocery store or even get recipes. The Blue Apron would pick their foods, curate their collection, provide them the recipes, and drop it off at their front door. They learned from Amazon, which now controls 50% of all online commerce, that, gosh, it's awfully easy to just jump online, buy it, and it will be delivered tomorrow. That's what they were doing for 10 years. None of that was caused by COVID. Zappos taught them that the online experience is a better experience. The customer experience, a digital customer experience, can be better than a physical retail experience. FaceTime taught mom and dad that they too can even use a computer. Even the kids say it, and they say it this way, even mom and dad can use that, which means it's just dumb, stupid, easy, okay? They're not telling you you're a rocket scientist. And communication methods have changed as well. We've got social media, we've got chat, we've got text, and consumers want text. They want to use these alternative forms. So if your business is still sitting there going, well, give us a call, right? Send me an email. It's like saying, 50 years ago, oh, we don't have a telephone. Send me a telegram. How about a telex? Send a courier over with a message. Maybe a pigeon would be good. We've changed. And how consumers behave and what technologies they use has changed along with it. Opendoor demonstrated this in the real estate market about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? They decided that why would you need to go get a real estate agent and delay seeing a property that you drive by? Why wouldn't you drive by a home for sale and say, I'd like to see that house? Walk right up to it, pull out your app, type in your information, door unlocks, you tour the home. Seems pretty simple. Until that point, it seemed absolutely insurmountably difficult and challenging until Opendoor changed the entire real estate industry and made self-touring a reality and a modern standard. And millennials are showing us the way too. In 2017, 41% of millennials put an offer in on a home before they ever saw it. This didn't happen because of the pandemic. This was 3 years before the pandemic. They were showing us the way. They were showing us what the future was going to be like. We were just resident going, I'm not sure that's really where we need to go. We had a million excuses as to how we didn't have to change with them. Consumers were ready. The pandemic didn't change consumers. The pandemic emboldened them. They were ready to adopt with rigor and discipline to move forward and embrace this change. As an industry, though, we were not. We were reluctant to meet consumers where they already were because kind of our internal clock speed is pretty slow as an industry. We had fear about, well, what if we do something that doesn't work, anxiety about the unknown. We had inertia behind us. Well, we are doing this and this and this. How could we change course? We had ambivalence. We didn't really feel like there was a need because we were doing pretty well without it. And we have cognitive biases that absolutely work against us in strategic planning every single day of the week. These cognitive biases, whether they're confirmation bias, status quo bias, negativity bias, not-invented here syndrome bias, irrational escalation bias, all of these biases basically freeze us and paralyze us from looking at a future that doesn't exist today and lock us into the status quo and unfortunately then handicap and paralyze our business results. COVID was a catalyst. COVID was an urgent, non-negotiable, life-threatening, clear, direct business survival message that says, if you don't do something now, you may not even exist in a couple of months. That message has never really been delivered to us. You see, prior to this, we would look at digital transformation as kind of like a vitamin. Oh, well, that'd be a nice thing to take, and that might make me more healthy. But you know, there's no urgent need to take a vitamin. What COVID did is it changed digital transformation from becoming a vitamin, being a vitamin, something that might someday be something that you could consider doing, but there's no real pain or loss if you don't do it, to being morphine. You need a direct, immediate painkiller. And COVID made that readily apparent that digital transformation was here to stay. By the way, pain is something that is pretty common catalyst for why companies actually make difficult decisions. Even Apple, one of those valuable companies in the world today, treasured by everybody. You have to go back to 1997 when they were facing bankruptcy and had to make absolutely gut-wrenching decisions to change their business. It was the pain of them facing bankruptcy that made them bring Steve Jobs back. And Steve Jobs forced them to get out of just the computer business and begin to sell music and players and then eventually iPhones. It was indeed that pain, that catalyst that clarified their vision that says we can't keep being what we are or we will no longer exist. COVID did that to all of us. So before we leave, I've got 10 concepts that I want you to embrace in this post-COVID world. First, adopt a digital-first strategy. Look, there is no such thing as digital strategy anymore. There is just strategy in a digital world. And what do I mean by digital-first strategy? What I mean is you don't sit here and say, maybe we should launch a website as well, and maybe we should add this. That's not digital first, that's digital last. Meaning you've got everything else going, you're maintaining everything in your business that you've had for 120 years to get you to here, and you're just gluing on some digital artifacts to that business. Flip the switch. Ask yourself this, what if our customers only explore us, only discover us, only consider us, only experience us digitally? And what does that experience feel like and look like? And how do we build that experience first? And then how do we use all of our other assets, our people and our physical resources? How do we use all of those to support the digital experience? Flipping it completely on its head. Change your paradigm of how consumers will relate to you and your brand. Second, understand your consumer journey. Not from your perspective, not going, yeah, we know how consumers come, they do this and this and this. No, put your feet in their shoes, put their glasses on your eyes. Look at your company through their lens, and look at your company through their lens in every single touch point that they have, from consideration and discovery to purchase, to contract, to delivery, to service, to fulfillment, right? What do all of those touch points look like? What tools, how do they experience you digitally? And remember, if you're a digital first company, the lens you're gonna put on that first is you're gonna experience me digitally to begin with. So don't think about all of your other physical ways that you deal with customers. Again, digital first, customer journey view. Then you've got data and data science. You're going to have to invest in data science. The modern future in a digital world collects data. Every day, every week, every operation, you're going to have mounds and mounds and mounds of data. But data is not what you need. What you need is insights from the data. You need to understand why consumers choose certain products, why they abandon their shopping cart, why they come and they leave, why they bounce off of your website. You need to understand all of this. And to do that, you're going to have to invest in data science and data scientists. And if your headquarters don't happen to be in San Francisco or Boston or Austin or Seattle, where 95% of all the data scientists in the entire country happen to live, then you're going to have a strategy to work with companies like EX Squared or other companies to be able to tap into the world's best data scientists, even though you don't happen to have offices and operations in those key technical hubs. Number 4, commit to killer content. There is no such thing as a digital experience today without killer content. And I'm talking about great content. I'm talking about virtual reality and augmented reality and interactive content and visualizers and rich media content. You need to have an amazing immersive experience where people feel as though they were there. Time and time again, when we talk to home shoppers, home remodelers, renovators, people decorating, what they want is they want to be able to experience the renovation and the creation of their living space from the comfort of their own living room. They want to be able to do this in their time, at their pace, without anybody looking over their shoulder, using digital tools. Today, there's no excuse not to be able to provide consumers these digital tools to allow them to live out what they believe is a contemporary, successful, and competitive digital experience. Then there's embracing self-service. Yeah, I know. Oh, self-service, isn't that bad customer service? You know, we want to provide real service. The world's changed. Online, people want to be able to have 100% access to all of the information they need to make accurate decisions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Think about it in our industry. I mean, this means you should have online design centers like Envision, where people can choose their options and visualize their options at the comfort and convenience. They can do it at 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday if they want. They don't have to drive across town between 10 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. They can do it anytime, on the weekend, at night, late. Give them the flexibility to be able to control the pace, the time, and the actions that they take. Allow them to have remote access to all of your physical properties like UTour, a simple device like Opendoor that allows you to go tour any model home whenever you want, safely and securely, without having people, again, looking over your shoulder. Number 6, offer contemporary communication. We are kind of stuck in an email and telephone world. We need to figure out how we can adopt the communication methods that have been ubiquitously distributed that we use every single day. I'm talking about using virtual meetings. Look, we're in a virtual meeting right now. Everybody knows how to use virtual meetings now. So there should be no surprise that our customers want to use virtual meetings to connect with you. The next, text messaging. Everybody wants to be able to use text messaging. We're on mobile phones. Mobile phone usage is going through the roof. And because of that, we need to be able to reach out to our trusted brands and our retailers and our service providers in a text and mobile manner. And then finally, give them chatbots. Give them the ability to talk to an assistant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Chat offers that promise economically, effectively, and is more gratifying to customers than actually even talking to live service personnel. 7, help build the new home. Look, we've said that everybody's a homebody now. We've said that our relationships with homes have changed. That means homes need to change. So if you're an integrator, installer, a retailer, or a builder, you need to think of how you're going to change that physical environment and create the home for the new normal. That means more outdoor living space. That means healthier spaces. That means talking about UV filtration and HEPA filtration and automated air sensing systems that can tell people whether the air quality within their home is healthy or not. This means self-healing surfaces that actually kill germs and viruses within your home. Wi-Fi everywhere, because we need Wi-Fi. Like we didn't know that before COVID, we really know that now. We need 5 bars of 5Gs anywhere on our property, even in the very corner of our property. We need it everywhere, and we need to be able to deliver these things. Home has become the office, and we can't just have a desk someplace stuck in the kitchen. We need a real home office with charging pads, with a refrigerator, with all of the access points, with potentially a pull-down green screen, right? With ergonomic setting, with perhaps even noise absorbing walls so that no external noises get into our office. Kitchens now have become for cooking. It's a novel idea. Who thought that kitchens would actually be used for food preparation and pantries for food storage? But they are today, and we need to deal with that. And dogs, 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 and more dogs. If you didn't have a dog, you have one now. If you had one, you have two. If you have two, you have four. That's the way it works. In the pandemic, they've simply multiplied in our homes, and they've become our best friends. Why? Because we don't have any friends. We can't see anybody. We can't go anywhere. So we can get more dogs, and we are getting more dogs. So how do we design homes to also welcome home our new best friend? And then resilience and self-sufficiency. This feeling of vulnerability to the pandemic is making consumers feel like they need to do something to be more resilient, more self-sustaining, right? More secure. That means solar power. That means fireplaces. That means battery storage systems. It means hurricane and weather hardiness. There are all kinds of marketing messages that will speak to the new consumer. Number 8, exploit the loyalty gap and mind the gap. We talked about the fact that during this period of time, consumers for the first time are beginning to question the brands they've done business with and the retailers they've done business with, the service providers. Use this, exploit this, and to your benefit so you become the product of choice or the retailer of choice. Number 9, consider your cognitive biases. We're talking about planning the future. We're talking about moving our organizations from here to there. And when we move organizations from here to there, we've got to break the paradigm. But you've got these nagging cognitive biases that are going to tell you, no, don't do that, Tim. No, oh, that's scary. What if we do something bad? Oh, I like what we've done. You know, that's not how we got to where we are, right? Oh, there could be negative consequences of this. We've got to break through. We've got to understand and consider our cognitive biases of why we're so fearful of moving forward, embracing the future. And then finally, number 10, act. Act and act now. Look, the details of the new normal aren't all perfectly clear, but it's certainly coming into form. There's enough data so that we can get a pretty good idea of what that future might look like. A lot of these long-term changes are still in their formative stage, and they may not turn out exactly like we think they are today. But some of what we know undoubtedly is going to be wrong, but most of what we know is already forecasting and foretelling what a future really looks like. So you have an opportunity today. You have the opportunity today to shape our future. Our future as a home building industry could be more prosperous if we take this time and begin to act. Thanks for taking your time. Thanks for joining me here in beautiful Austin, Texas. If you want to connect, I'm going to give you all my information. Please reach out. If you like this kind of topic, you can always follow me on Twitter at BylineTim. Have a great conference.